Hi, it's Laura with One Girl, Two Cities. I just got back from Bloomington where I went to Artistry and I saw Bad Dates, which stars Sara Marsh. It's written by Theresa Rebeck and it's directed by Mel Day. It was a really fun show. This was a really great show for Sara in particular. It's a solo show for her and she has to engage the audience a lot throughout it, which is, I think, a really excellent role for her because it's something that she just does really well. She's so cute and charming, but also kind of feisty, and that's what this role of Haley Walker is for her. It's just kind of, it's an interesting storyline because it does talk about a lot of bad dates that Haley goes on, but it also ends up taking a twist that I didn't quite see coming. So it just made it a little bit extra fun, I think. I really enjoyed some of the stories about the dates that Haley went on because it kind of made me think back to dates that I've been on. One of the men that comes up throughout her story is a gentleman to which she refers as the bug guy, and I feel like a lot of us kind of end up, who have dated a lot, end up with people like that they just have kind of an interesting nickname and there's a story behind it and it's kind of fun to tell. So I have the guy who wanted to court me. That was an interesting one. It's a guy that I met not long after college and not long after I got out of college. I met him through Yahoo Personals, which I don't know that does that exist anymore? I have no idea. But it probably did even at the time that the show took place because it was written in 2003. So there are parts that feel a little bit dated, but it almost has like a Sex and the City, like Carrie meets Charlotte kind of feel to it as far as Haley's character. So this guy that wanted to court me, I had met him through Yahoo Personals. We went out a couple times and I was not feeling it. So I knew that at our next date that I needed to tell him that it was just a friendship kind of thing. So he shows up with a dozen red roses, which made it extremely awkward. And we kind of brought that up. And so I said, well, actually, kind of came here because I wanted to tell you that I just want to be friends. And he says, oh, well, that's a shame because I was actually going to ask if I could court you. I don't even really know what that means. So I didn't really see him again after that because, it was just awkward for many reasons. Let alone the fact that we were having lunch at a Cracker Barrel. So who shows up with a dozen red roses at a Cracker Barrel? I don't know. This guy, but whatever. I also have the crying guy. He's one that I like to bring up. I can't remember quite how I met him, but he was one of the post-college guys too. He was not very tall. I think he was maybe 5'4", 5'5", something like that, which was perfect for me because I'm only 4'10". But he went on vacation with his family and I met someone else who legitimately ended up being someone that I married. So I kind of wish I could almost go back in time and tell him this, even though I'm not married anymore, but that's beside the point. So when he got back from vacation and I told him that I had met someone that I was interested in and wanted to continue seeing, he got very quiet and his eyes teared up. Then he asked me if the guy that I had met was taller than him. And I had to tell him yes, because he was, and I wasn't gonna lie. But I felt so bad, and he took it really hard, and he obviously had a complex about his height. So yes, he's known as the crying guy. I also have the worst date that I've ever been on. There were some of the stories that were told throughout this just made me think about all these dates that I've been on, and one that I went on a few years ago now was a guy that actually picked me up at a bar, which is weird because it's not something that's ever really happened to me before. So I didn't actually know that it was happening until we were about to part ways and he asked for my number. And I was like, oh, that's what's happening here. So weird. It was completely out of the norm for me. But yeah, he ended up having me meet him at a sports bar, and just I kind of went off the rails pretty quickly. Like, I told him that I have cats, my kids, and he ended up telling me that he hates cats. So that was a big -1 for him, probably bigger than that. He also, I was vegetarian at the time, and so he had said that he had dated a girl who was vegetarian, but if he went hunting or fished or something, she would eat those animals that he caught himself. And so he asked if that's something that I would do, and I said no, it's not. And he told me that I was ridiculous for thinking that. And I just feel like if you're really wanting to impress someone, you probably shouldn't tell them that they're ridiculous. That's just my pro tip here that I will offer to you, so you're welcome. And then he still tried to get me to kiss him, at which point it was time for me to make my exit and go. So yeah, that was an interesting date. And so Sarah's character Haley in Bad Dates goes through some of these weird, awkward things, but there's a lot of insights that are sprinkled into the script, which I really appreciated. One of the dates that she went on where she makes it clear that the guy was pretty terrible for various reasons. She wanted to stiff him with the bill because Haley's character runs a restaurant, and this guy wanted to have their date at her restaurant. Naturally, probably assuming that the meal would just be comped. And she said normally that's what would happen, but he was so terrible on this date that she wanted him to pay for it. But then in the end, she realized that, there's different circumstances that we're all in, and she didn't want to perpetuate this idea that it's like men against women in the hetero world that we live in. And so yeah, I really appreciated that about it. So her character does not make him pay for the meal in the end. But that was kind of interesting because there are some, I don't know, it touches on some points about, so this guy that was terrible, also her character Haley decides is gay. So there are some points in it that kind of make it seem a little uncomfortable as far as how that's perceived. And I know I talked to Sarah afterwards, and she said that they did take out a few things to make it just a little bit easier to swallow, I guess. So that could be something that kind of rubs people the wrong way, I guess, as far as the show goes. But overall, they really stress that he was just a crappy person, and the date wasn't necessarily bad because she thought he was gay. So I want to make a point of that. And then the show wraps up, again, just kind of re-emphasizing the fact that for those of us that are hetero, we don't need to see it as men against women or anything, which I think that I get stuck in that, especially as we go on all these dates and these weird things happen to us. It just feels like, you kind of get bitter about things. Like I had a guy a little bit kind of recently who I said that I just wanted to be friends, and he decided that he couldn't even just be friends with me, which is fine. I completely respect that. But now he just texted me recently, just out of the blue, just to shoot the shit. He didn't acknowledge the fact that we haven't been communicating for, I don't know, maybe like a month or something like that. And it just, my first inclination is to be like, why the heck are you getting in touch with me? Like, don't pretend like nothing happened. But I don't know, we'll see if he reaches out to me again, because I did, in the end, I did tell him, I'm here if you change your mind, and if he's changed his mind, that's fine. I can be friends with the guy, but you can't just pretend that nothing happened at the same time too. So But yeah, it's just, I feel like sometimes as you go through dating or even sometimes friendships with members of the opposite sex, it's easy to get a little bitter about things. And so I just really like that the message was kind of emphasizing the fact that we are all really in this together. We're all coming from our own places and have our own stories and our own narratives. You just never know where someone's coming from that's causing them to behave a certain way, or maybe they're even just having a bad day on the day that you catch them for a date or a hangout or whatever kind of interaction that you have. And I just think that that's a good message that people need to have overall right now, because there's a lot of stuff going on. People are very sensitive. It's a very inflammatory environment right now, and I think it's really good to remind ourselves that, you know, think about where someone else might be coming from before you're so quick to judge, which is easier said than done, but it's something that I'm working on, and I know some other people that are working on it too, and I think it's really great. And I think we just need to continue doing that, because in the end too, I think we need to consider that, you know, if, depending on what it is, maybe the perspective of someone else, though it might differ from ours, it's not necessarily bad. It certainly depends on what the topic is, don't get me wrong, but there are little things where you can just agree to disagree, and in the end it's not that big of a deal. And it's better to consider us on the same side as each other rather than opposing if you do have differing viewpoints. So that's just my thought on it. So in the end, yes, Bad Dates. It was a very enjoyable show. Sara Marsh is fantastic. Like I said, she's just so charming, and you just feel drawn into her as she's telling you the story. And it's not what I ended up expecting it to be. I thought it was just going to basically be, you know, she has these dates. Some are good, some are bad. She meets this guy in the end that she ends up with, and it's just not necessarily that at all. There's just a fun little twist to it that I really enjoyed. It's playing at Artistry, which is in Bloomington, through February 26th. I've really been enjoying going to Artistry lately. I saw Little Shop of Horrors recently, which was an excellent production. They've had, for Little Shop of Horrors and for Bad Dates, they had Pay What You Can nights on a Monday night, so I got tickets very inexpensively. And then what they have coming up next is called Wit. Do they have dates on here? That's May 6th through 28th. And yeah, it's going to feature Sally Wingert, who is amazing, and I would recommend that you see anything that Sally Wingert stars in. So check out Wit at Artistry. And then again, Bad Dates is at Artistry through February 26th. Well, thanks for listening and for watching. If you have any fun or weird or anything date stories, feel free to share in the comments below. Feel free to like the video or subscribe. I don't know. It's just a YouTube channel to me right now, so I appreciate likes and subscribes, but no harm done if you didn't like it or if you don't subscribe. So this is Laura with One Girl, Two Cities. Thanks again.